Talk Show. Recorded live.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Myth or Logic Radio. I'm Tom Murasso from BornToManifest.com, and I am so excited that my guest tonight is Guy Finley. And Guy is the acclaimed author of The Secret of Letting Go, and more than 35 other books and audio programs that have sold over 1 million copies in 18 languages worldwide. In addition, he has presented over 4,000 unique self-realization seminars to thousands of grateful students throughout North America and Europe over the past 25 years, and he's been a guest on over 600 television and radio shows, including national appearances on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, NPR, Wisdom Network, and many others. He also has a syndicated weekly radio program that's aired on several international networks, including Health and Life Radio Network, World Talk Radio Network, Contact Talk Radio International, BBS, Earth Channel, and Penguin Radio. Guy is the director of Life of Learning Foundation, a renowned nonprofit center for self-study located in Merlin, Oregon. And over 200,000 people in 142 countries read his popular key lesson emails each week. And his work is widely endorsed by doctors, business professionals, celebrities, and religious leaders of all denominations. In addition to his writing and appearance schedule, Guy presents 4 inner life classes each week at Life of Learning Foundation. And these classes are ongoing and open to the public. And get a hold of Guy and his life-changing work. Visit GuyFinley.org. Guy, thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest tonight on Myth or Logic. How are you doing?
I'm great, Tom. Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Your new book, Essential Laws of Fearless Living, is absolutely dynamite.
Thank you.
Most of us have lived with fear for so long that it seems like the natural way to approach the experiences we meet every day. I mean, you turn on the tube, it's fear, 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 and we're just kind of brought up to be careful. You know, we don't even question it. How did we become so compromised and programmed like that? Why do we feel so powerless?
It's a good question because it runs, in a way, right to the heart of the whole subject of fearless living and what we can do as individuals to reverse this course. You know, Tom, number one, I want to say that throughout our conversation, it's understood that all of us, no matter what we are up to, are doing the best that we know how to do in the moment. Nobody is going to judge anybody here, but we're going to be honest. And part of the honesty requires that we say, look, I know it, you know it. Who doesn't do their best? That Madoff guy that just ripped off $60 billion, he was actually doing the best he knew how to do. It's hard for us to believe that when we look around and we see where there are obvious, you can use the words, psychopaths, cultural reprobates, thieves, liars, thugs, that these people are doing the best they know how to do, but it's a fact. And it also holds true that even though we live, most of us, a somewhat congenial life, hopefully without too many enemies and at least at this point a tolerable amount of stress, even so we are doing the best we know how to do. So what we're going to do here is we're going to learn some new things so that with a new base of knowledge, we can begin to look at what we are presently doing and see whether or not it makes sense to us anymore, and if we can begin to apply ourselves to the new understanding that actually is the foundation of a fearless life. So with that introduction aside, what's happened, Tom, the reason that fear is so rampant today is that it is a... Where do you live, might I ask?
I'm in North Carolina, right dead center in the state.
North Carolina? You're breaking up a little bit, but do you have blackberry bushes there?
Well, sure.
I'm asking because anybody who's ever had a piece of property with a blackberry bush on it knows how hard it is to get rid of the blackberry bush because the way the thing roots itself. And the reason I'm saying that is because what we're looking at today in terms of the waves of fear, the pandemic of fear, is due to what has been growing for a long time and can't be wiped out regardless of how astute or ignorant political programs may be, regardless of what individuals do. We've grown into a very terrible situation. Here's why. Without knowing it, from the last probably, I would say, 3-4 generations, maybe 5, fear has become a part of our value system, Tom. Literally a part of our value system. But again, without us knowing that it was happening. And here's how, listeners, fear has become hardwired into our present existence. When we believe that our value as a human being, our worth as individuals, is somehow determined by the number of possessions that we have and how we are perceived by other people for those possessions, then we have become, without knowing it, a subscriber to a system that exists in order for our worth to be a comparative value. And because the value that we compare ourselves to requires that we are always gathering new ways in which to define ourselves through these things, what happens is that the minute that anything in the world changes and changes the circumstances by which we have defined ourselves through these possessions, in other words, I got to live in a certain size home I can't afford, by and large. I need to drive a car that costs more than I should pay for it. And we start putting ourselves into situations where we are living over our means, then we are subscribing to a system that values fear, because on one hand we have the pleasure of appearing as though we are substantial human beings. But the root of it is rotten, because it's all based in this belief that who we are must be seen in a certain way by our friends and family, and even by our own mind comparing ourselves to social values. We wind up serving a system, not being liberated by it, and when the system starts to teeter, there's nothing that can be done to keep it in place, planetarily or personally, because it was an illusion. So that's a long answer for why fear is the way it is today. It's because without knowing it, we have grown it in our hearts and minds, and now are suffering the consequences of that unconscious relationship we have produced with fear.
So basically, what you're saying is that most people will define their self-worth by what they own, their house, car, and if it's better than your neighbors at keeping up with the Joneses thing, your self-worth is more valuable than somebody else's.
Right.
And once that system falls apart, like we see, or at least hear on the news, then our whole foundation, our self-worth that was built upon this illusion starts to crumble.
And the thing is, see, when we talk about possessions, there's nothing wrong with an individual doing the very best that he or she can in life. In fact, I urge people to be the most excellent they can be in whatever the task may be. But the issue here that we're looking at is that literally, Tom, over time, we have become convinced that who and what we are is not enough as we are. It's just hardwired into us that we are always supposed to be becoming something greater. But the only thing we know to become that is greater, meaning that gives us a sense of being more complete, more whole, the only road we know to take is through this path of trying to acquire worldly possessions. And again, I say there's nothing wrong with that, but what happens is that it's a false premise. You can never complete yourself. You can never find the sense of peace and contentment that you're looking for through trying to acquire things that make you feel whole. It just doesn't work. And we're seeing the evidence of it now, because as this very system of defining myself and my worth through these pursuits began to unravel, it unraveled because we never were able to do it. And then greed, which is the extension of, the expression of fear that can't be appeased, when that greed starts to surface, everybody's scrambling to get more and more and more, and then you just flat run out of the bubble. It just breaks, and then you're just left seeing what always was, which is that who I am, not only am I not more happy and satisfied with what I pursued and won, but I'm actually in greater jeopardy and fear now as a result of that. And it's all backwards, Tom. It's all backwards.
Yeah. Okay, so the obvious effects of fear, we all know about it, how it holds us back from doing what we want, fills us with stress, but it hurts us in a deeper way that we may not even be aware of, doesn't it?
Yes.
What's that deeper influence of fear in our lives?
Well, you see, the fear exists as it does. Because, and we'll look at this, we'll take an event so we can kind of get something down on the earth plane here. When an event happens and we feel fear, what's the root of the fear? Now, most of us don't ever really examine these things, but if we're tired of being afraid, we need to start understanding the dynamic in our own consciousness that is producing it, because it is not the world that is creating fear. I'm going to say it again. It is not the world. It is not your family. Sorry. It isn't even the economy that's producing the fear. The root of fear, and let's take it apart here. An event happens, and can I be afraid of an event that has taken place, Tom, before I don't want it?
Sure.
I can? This is why we're going to take this apart. I'm saying to you that an event happens, and what's the first thing that takes place before I feel the fear? What is it that's producing it? It isn't the event, because I can be sitting in my chair next to you, and a certain piece of news can come along, and I feel no fear, or you feel no fear, and the other man is terrified. So the fear is not in the event itself, because if it was, then everyone would feel the same fear. Do you not agree with that? I
understand. I agree, and I misinterpreted what you said. I thought you said before the event, so that's why I answered like I did.
Yeah.
Because I was leaning towards worry and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So what we're saying here is that clearly the fear that we feel is not connected to the event itself, but something else is taking place that is producing the fear, and that's what we're interested in. Because most of our lives, Tom, and part of the mindset that has driven this miserable state that we're in now, is that the event, the relationship, the circumstance is the fear producer, and it is not. Our whole life has been spent trying to change the event, the person, or the problem, based on a false belief that if we could change the event or the relationship, the fear would go away. Clearly, it has never worked. So then, where is the fear if it is not in the event itself? And that's why I asked the question I did. And listeners, join me now. I want you to see it.